You know the feeling. It's 2 a.m. You're not even sad, exactly. You're just somewhere else, replaying a conversation that ended months ago, rewriting the ending in your head the way you wish it had gone, wondering if they ever do the same. They probably don't. And somewhere beneath the replaying and the wondering, you already know that. You've known it for a while. But knowing something and feeling free from it, those are two very different countries, and the road between them is longer than anyone tells you. This is not a video about moving on fast. It's not about pretending you're fine or performing healing for an audience of one. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they didn't teach numbness. They taught something harder and more honest than that. They taught you how to see clearly while you're still in pain. Because the attachment you're carrying right now, it's not just about them. It never really was. It's about your mind, what it reaches for, what it refuses to release, and why. 6 Stoic rules. Not quick fixes, not platitudes, just principles that have helped people reclaim themselves for over 2,000 years. If you're ready to start letting go, drop the word "free" in the comments. Let's begin. Rule 1. Stop romanticizing what hurt you. Here's something the mind does that it will never apologize for. It edits. When you think about this person, and you do, you think about them often, what version of them shows up? Is it the argument that broke something between you? The silence that followed? The moment you realized you were the only one still trying? Probably not. What shows up is the laugh, the inside joke, the night everything felt possible. The mind is not a historian, it's a curator. And it has already decided which pieces of the story are worth keeping on display. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But before you can move through something, you have to see it as it actually is, not as the softer, more bearable version you've constructed to survive the loss. Romanticizing someone who hurt you is not love. It is a coping mechanism wearing love's clothing. Think about it honestly. The relationship you miss, was it consistently that beautiful? Or were there patterns you kept excusing? Moments where you bent yourself into uncomfortable shapes just to make the connection work? Needs you buried because expressing them felt too risky? The Stoics called this false impression, the gap between what something appears to be and what it actually is. And they were ruthless about closing that gap, not cruel, not dismissive, but honest in a way that most of us are too afraid to be about the people we've loved. This is your first rule. See the whole painting. Not just the brush strokes that were beautiful, the entire canvas, including the parts that were always a little off, a little strained, a little less than what you deserved. You are not dishonoring the good by acknowledging the hard. You are simply refusing to let a curated memory hold more power over you than the full, complicated truth. The person you can't stop thinking about is not who you think they are. They are who they actually were, all of it. And when you hold both, the grip begins to loosen. Rule 2. Accept what you cannot control. There is a question that lives underneath all of this longing, and most people never say it out loud. What if I had done something differently? What if you had said less or more, or said the right thing at the right moment? What if you had been less guarded, or more patient, or just different enough that the outcome would have changed? This is the thought that doesn't announce itself. It just quietly dismantles you. Epictetus built his entire philosophy on a single distinction. Some things are up to us. Our thoughts, our choices, our responses, our values. Everything else, other people's feelings, their decisions, whether they stay or go, is not up to us. And he wasn't being cold when he said this. He was being liberating. Because the amount of energy you have spent trying to retroactively control an outcome that has already happened, that energy is real. It costs something, and it has been paying rent in your nervous system long enough. Here is the Stoic truth that is hard to hear, but harder to keep ignoring. You cannot think your way into someone choosing you. You cannot replay your way into a different ending. The past is not a room you can redecorate. It is a room that is permanently, unchangeably sealed. What you can control is where you place your attention right now, today, in this hour. Not whether they miss you, not what they're doing, who they're with, whether the new chapter of their life includes a version of you in any form. Those questions live entirely outside the boundary of your influence, and every moment you spend inside them is a moment borrowed against your own peace. The Stoics didn't teach detachment to make you indifferent. They taught it to return you to yourself, to show you that your power has always been here in this body, in this moment, not out there, chasing a variable you were never able to control. Let the outcome be what it is. Your job was never to manage their heart. It was always to tend your own. Rule 3. Closure is an inside job. You've been waiting for something. Maybe you're not even conscious of it anymore. It's become background noise. But somewhere, quietly, you've been waiting for a conversation that explains everything. A message that finally makes it make sense. An acknowledgement that what happened mattered, that you mattered, that the thing between you was real, and its ending was worth a real goodbye. That conversation may never come. And one of the most quietly devastating things you can do to yourself is build your healing around the arrival of something that was never promised to you. Seneca wrote, "Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est." All things are alien to us. Time alone is ours. And here is what that means in practice. The explanation you're waiting for belongs to someone else. The apology, the admission, the moment where they finally see you clearly and say so. Those are things that live inside another person. You cannot retrieve them. You cannot earn your way to them. Closure is not a gift someone else gives you. It is a decision you make. It is the moment you choose to stop making your peace conditional on their participation. It is the quiet, unglamorous act of saying, "I release my need for this story to end differently." Not because the pain wasn't real, it was. Not because you didn't deserve better, you did. But because waiting for someone else to complete your healing is another way of handing them power over your life that they no longer, and perhaps never did, deserve to hold. The Stoics practiced something they called prosoche, a form of radical self-attention, the practice of turning inward, honestly and without distraction, to examine what is happening in your own mind, not waiting for the external world to provide meaning, creating it yourself. You are allowed to close the chapter without a satisfying final line. You are allowed to grieve something that ended badly and still decide the grief has run its course. Closure is not the end of pain. It is the beginning of choosing yourself anyway. Rule 4. Protect your inner world. At some point during attachment, and this happens so gradually you barely notice, you begin to live outside yourself. Your emotional state starts tracking someone else's. You check their social media, not because you expect good news, but because the not knowing feels worse than whatever you might find. You analyze their behavior for clues about your worth. You let their silence speak louder than every affirming thing you know about yourself. This is what the Stoics meant when they warned against surrendering your hegemonikon, your ruling faculty, the innermost seat of your judgment and peace. You were not built to let another person's choices become the weather inside you. But somewhere along the way, you gave them that kind of access. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Not willpower, not discipline in the white-knuckling sense. Strength that comes from understanding where you end and where someone else's story begins." Protecting your inner world doesn't mean shutting down. It doesn't mean building walls so high that nothing can touch you. It means becoming deliberate about what you let in. It means noticing, without judgment, when your thoughts have wandered back into a space that no longer belongs to you, and gently, firmly, walking yourself back. It looks like not reading old conversations at midnight. Not because you're weak if you do, but because you are choosing not to reopen a wound that is just beginning to close. It looks like not performing your healing for anyone, not rushing it, not announcing it, not making it something you have to justify to the person who hurt you or the audience watching. Your inner life is the only territory you truly own. It is the one place no one can take from you unless you hand it over willingly. And right now, you have been handing it over. A little bit every day. In every replay, every check, every imagined conversation that leaves you emptier than before. Take it back. Not loudly, not dramatically, just take it back. Rule 5. Shift from who you lost to who you're becoming. Grief has a gravity to it. That's not a flaw. That's just what it is. When you lose someone who mattered, the mind does something almost magnetic. It keeps turning back to the person, the relationship, the version of yourself that existed inside that connection. And for a while, that turning back is necessary. It is how you process, how you honor what was real. But there comes a point, and you will know it when you feel it, where turning back is no longer grieving. It is hiding. The Stoics believed that every human being carries within them a daimon, an inner guiding force, a version of yourself at your most intentional and alive. And they believed that your primary responsibility in this life was not to another person, not to a relationship, not to a past that can no longer be changed. It was to become, fully, honestly, without apology, that person. The relationship you're grieving took up space. That is not a criticism. Everything real takes up space. But now that it has ended, there is space available that wasn't there before. Space in your schedule, your emotional bandwidth, your sense of who you are when no one is watching. The question the Stoics would ask you is not, how do I stop missing them? That question keeps the focus in the wrong direction. The question is, who am I without this? Not who you were before you met them. People change. You are not going back. But who are you now, on the other side of this, if you decide to actually inhabit your own life again? What did you set aside during that relationship that is quietly waiting for you to return to it? What version of yourself, more honest, more grounded, more yours, has been standing in the hallway, patient and uncomplaining, while you've been elsewhere? This is not toxic positivity. This is not everything happens for a reason. This is simply the Stoic insistence that your life belongs to you, and it is happening right now, whether or not you are present for it. Rule 6. Let the present be enough. The mind that cannot let go is almost always living in two places at once. Part of it is in the past, replaying, reconstructing, mourning what was. Part of it is in a future that doesn't exist yet, imagining reconciliation, imagining indifference, imagining the day this finally stops hurting. And somewhere in between those two places, the present moment is passing entirely unnoticed. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea again and again throughout the meditations. Confine yourself to the present. Not because the past doesn't matter or the future isn't worth considering, but because the present is the only place where your life is actually occurring. The past is a record. The future is a projection. This moment, right here, in whatever room you're in, whatever light is falling through whatever window, this is where you exist. And for a long time now, you have not fully been here. There is a practice in Stoic philosophy sometimes called negative visualization, the deliberate act of imagining loss in order to fully appreciate what remains, not as a form of pessimism, but as a return to gratitude. And here is what that looks like for you right now. Instead of imagining getting them back, try imagining your life 5 years from now, after you chose yourself, after you stayed present, after you let this particular grief run its course and discovered what was waiting on the other side of it. You do not need to have that whole future figured out today. The Stoics never asked for certainty. They asked for presence. One moment of genuine presence, of actually being in your own life, in your own body, tasting what is here rather than aching for what isn't, is worth more than 1,000 replays of something that cannot be changed. You have been so loyal to the past, so faithfully, quietly, exhaustingly devoted to a version of something that no longer exists. What would it feel like to be that loyal to right now? To this breath, this room, this version of you, the one who is still here, still capable, still entirely your own. 6 rules, not a checklist, not a cure, a direction. Because that's all the Stoics ever really offered. Not a destination, not a promise that the pain ends on a schedule, but a direction to face when the weight of someone's absence makes it hard to remember which way is forward. You came into this video carrying something. A name, maybe, a face, a conversation on loop, the particular ache of loving someone who is no longer loving you back in the same way, or the same place, or at all. And none of these 6 rules asked you to stop feeling that. The Stoics were not asking you to be stone. Marcus Aurelius lost people. Epictetus was enslaved. Seneca faced exile. These were not men who had never known what it meant to be broken open by something beyond their control. They knew. They wrote from inside the knowing. What they found, and what they left behind in those writings across 2,000 years, for someone exactly like you in exactly this moment, was that the mind can be redirected, not forced, not suppressed, redirected,